Aloha! What's up, everyone, and welcome to tonight's special Truth in Movies. I picked this one specifically because in the community tab on my channel, I made it available so that people can leave their recommendations for what they would like to see broken down here on my channel. So I went over all of them and I saw which one had the most likes, using that as sort of a voting system. And lo and behold, it was Big Trouble in Little China. So that's the movie that we're going to break down tonight. Welcome everybody in the live chat. Hope you guys have a good time, make some friends, enjoy the popcorn and the presentation. And hello all you future people. Without any further ado, let's jump right into our presentation tonight. Big Trouble in Little China, brought to you by Mount Meru, usually, as I like to say. Brought to you by 20th Century Fox. Now, you check this out. It's always kind of weird, right? How they always show this weird logo. It's almost like these weird Greco-Roman kind of little buildings with these blue beams of light that shoot up, just like we talk about so often with all of the plasma apocalypse symbolism and whatnot. And we start off, we hear the voice of one of the character's lawyers. There was this huge event that happened. So this character has a lawyer because, you know, people are investigating this strange event in Little Chinatown in San Francisco. And the lawyer says, what I'd like to do today is to get your version of what happened. So I'm going to give you my version of what happened. NT Dreamer just gave me $100 off the bat. Wow. Big thank you to NT Dreamer. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to give you guys my version of what happened today. So he says, I want to get your version of what happened today. And this guy named Egg Shin, he says, oh, you mean the truth, right? My version of what happened, our version of what happened, looking into what happened in our esoteric past or our hidden history or what I call ancient oblivion. We're going to give our own version instead of just accepting what academia would have us to believe, whatever's scripted and written out in our books for us. And he says, oh, my name is Egg Shin, bus driver. So this guy right here is one of the main characters, and his name is Egg Shin. He's a bus driver. Let's check this out. So egg is just like an egg, like a little egg that things hatch out of, right? But if we look up Shin in Chinese, it means spirit or divinity. The Shin are associated with the yang, like yin yang, right? The bright and active aspect of the cosmos, and with the higher spiritual component of the human soul. So it's akin to chi, basically. Chi meaning life force energy. And also the side of that energy that is additive, the side that gives energy, the side that is here to add to the world instead of just constantly take away. The good guys, basically, right? Which reminded me, this whole Egg Shin, the egg life force, the egg aura, that many people have seen when they read auras, reminded me of this book by Carlos Castaneda. It's called A Separate Reality, and in it, Carlos Castaneda, the author of the book, actually speaks with this Mexican shaman named Don Juan. Highly recommend this book if you're interested in stuff like this. When he talks to him, Don Juan teaches him about what the aura actually looks like when you're seeing with plasma eyes, when you're seeing with that electrified, amplified spirit, or when you're in the spirit world. People walk around and shine, and they look like little eggs that are walking around because you can see the auras all about them, right? They have these toroidal fields. Another good book on the exact same subject about someone who settles down with like a local tribal shaman in order to be guided through the spirit world is called The Cosmic Serpent. This one's a really good read too. I highly recommend it. But back to Don Juan, the teachings of the shaman Don Juan. It says that Don Juan instructed Castaneda that when he sees like a sorcerer, people appear to be luminous eggs. There's different ways and modes and methods of sight, right? It just depends on your energy and your body physically and your power that lies inside of you if you're able to see beyond, right? Which is what we try to do. I try to build a bridge to help people to learn how to do that with our Truth in Movies segment that we have right here. Now, this is an example of the egg-shaped auric field of the body. It's really a toroidal field that shoots upwards. It shoots upwards out of the head. It comes back in towards the heart, makes like a sort of figure eight, and shoots back down underneath the body as well. And then he says, I drive a tour bus for tourists. Now, Egg Shin not only represents our auric fields or our spirit energy, but he represents the spirit energy of the world itself, being somebody that drives the bus. The bus, the original word for bus is a box. It's a container. That's all it is. And the ultimate bus or the ultimate box symbolism is the box that we live in, which is the box of the world. It doesn't have to be a cube shape. Remember, just any kind of a container is a box. All right, so here's his lawyer, and he goes, half a city block explodes in a ball of green flame. Green flame! This guy's mind is blown. He has no idea, right? When regular people, the people that cannot see beyond, hear about these things, they throw it to the wind, and they just say, oh, it's, that's fantasy, that's fiction, that's myth, that's legend. Those are old wives' tales and nursery rhymes. But those of us who can see further, we see a lot more. The green flame, of course, is going to come up a lot in this movie, and that represents the Aurora Borealis, or the area at the North Pole, which we're going to talk about here too. As with many movies, this one is an age-old tale of an expedition to the North Pole, or getting to the North Pole and the polarity shift, as you're going to see. And he says, all hell was breaking loose here. And that's exactly where all of hell will break loose. Hell is considered to be the underworld, or the hollow recesses of our world. Now, one of these days, there are barriers and boundaries that keep those entities and spirit energies and stuff, they keep them trapped down there in Tartarus, or the underworld, or Sheol, and the upside down, etc. And one of these days, whenever we go through an electromagnetic shift and we hit the neutral point, those electromagnetic barriers that keep out living beings like us, and creatures and monsters and gigantic animals and insects, they will disappear. They will go away, and the doors will open, allowing them to come up from the underworld, as well as releasing all of the plasma that's kept down there, and we'll have like sort of a ghost or spirit type of an apocalypse as well. All hell breaking loose, coming up, erupting, bursting forth from the center of the world at Mount Meru. He says, now, if you're protecting Jack Burton, and he's like, you leave Jack Burton alone. We're going to learn more about Jack Burton right now. Now, we've talked about the name Jack a few different times, right? And I'll give you another origin of the name Jack, but let's check out Burton. It comes from two words. Bur, which we've looked up a couple of times, comes from the Proto-Indo-European root word bars, which means a bristle. You see that right there, a bristle? So let's check out bristle. What does bristle mean? So bur comes from bristle, and bristle basically means a point or a spike, a beam, a pillar, a column, etc., right? So Jack Burton, Jack of the spike being the nail or the vav or the tent peg or the column of light that shoots up from Mount Meru, giving us the Atlas symbolism, the squatter man, etc., right? The holy arrow, the holy spear, the spear of destiny. Now, Jack comes from Jacob or Yaakov, and the name Jacob in ancient Hebrew means supplanter, somebody who takes the place of somebody else. This is, by extension, it implies those who survive the apocalypse. Those of us who survive the upcoming apocalypse, we will take the place of those who are in charge of the world right now. We will inherit the earth. We will be the ones who make it and live and get to establish a new world however we see fit. And our stories will be the ones that are written about. We'll be the patriarchs and the matriarchs of a future worldwide civilization as we grow and develop our own families. Now the lawyer's like, do you really believe in magic? Right? And he goes, oh, absolutely. Right? And he says, and monsters and ghosts as well, I suppose. Oh, sure. Yes. And sorcery, actually. And he's like, well, why should I believe it? You might believe all that stuff, but why should I believe it? And he says, because it's real. Now, this is how the movie starts off. We establish that the following events, although cartoonified, although put into story form, are not fictitious. They're factual. They're evident. If you look across our time and history, our documentations of our myths and our legends, and we use comparative mythology and we compare all the different religious stories and texts and the ancient scriptures and writings, we can see that a story starts to appear. that they all have the same exact similarities and characters and events and stuff like that, we can see that there is a hidden history, something that we have forgotten about. It's our ancient oblivion. So he gives them a little taste of the magic, right? One of these days, we'll be able to just do stuff like that whenever the atmosphere is more energetically charged. Right now, the atmosphere and the energy in our world is retracted. It's going down into the earth to charge up within the bowels of the earth in order to be released back to us. And that will take us back into an age of magic, into a fantastic age, into an age of magic and mystery and all of the things that we write about and watch movies about and we're so attracted to now. That brings us to our title, Big Trouble in Little China. And he says, "This is Jack Burton on the Pork Chop Express. I'm talking to whoever's listening out there. You just listen to the Pork Chop Express and take his advice on a dark and stormy night, all right?" Now listen, he's saying at the beginning of this movie, they're always speaking to us, okay? We like to get lost in the movie and pretend like, oh, he's just talking to someone else and it's funny how he's talking and stuff. The movie is saying, you listen to me right now. The movie's grabbing out, reaching through the screen and grabbing our attention, saying, pay attention. We just told you magic is real. We just told you sorcery is real. We just told you all of these things, monsters and all the things of myth and legend have factual substance behind them. They have happened and they do exist, right? Even though we don't see them all over the place and they're not commonplace today. So he says, listen to me and take my advice. On a dark and stormy night. The dark and stormy night always symbolically represents the apocalypse, because when the world depressurizes and the sky bursts open because of all the pressure that's built up in this world, and we go through the neutral point of the electromagnetic shift, or the polarity shift that we're going to go through, all that pressure is going to be released at the apex of our sky, directly above the North Pole, which will cause a worldwide storm to form. Right? So it's always going to be a dark and a stormy night. So when you see the storms happening at the beginning of movies, this is the reason why. This is what kicks off and allows for all of the strange and larger than life happenings. And he says, a man have to be some kind of a fool to think we're all alone in this universe. So he comes across as somebody who's very simple. You know what I mean? Somebody who is not who you would think would become the hero of the story or something. And that's usually the types of people who are the survivors. According to my research, whenever I've researched religions and, eschatology or the apocalypse, the book of Revelation, things like that, it always talks about how the least assuming people are the types of people who tend to survive these events. Not rich and famous people, not powerful people, not people who are, notable or anything like that. Not people who have lots of money to go build bunkers and stuff, but people who just happen to be in the right place at the right time because they led their lives and they were led by their intuition, which led them to a place of safety. All right, so he goes to Little Chinatown, right? He goes down to Little Chinatown in San Francisco, and he meets up with his buddy Wang. They're getting drunk, having some beers and stuff, and they're betting. And at the end of the day, Jack wins a bunch of money, and then he bets Wang that he can't cut this bottle in half with this like machete that he has. Wang's like, I bet you I could cut this bottle in half. He's like, you're out of your mind, Wang. Now let's check out Wang real quick. If you look it up, Wang in Chinese means king. So Jack, which is the survivor who lives in the town, Burton or Birdtown, the town of the spike, the town of the spear, the town of the column, right? Which is that long lost island up at the top of the North Pole that's on many ancient maps, right? Check that out. I'll show you an example here in a bit. So he's sitting down with the king, basically. Wang represents royalty in the world today. So let's see what happens when he makes a bet with the king, Wang. Oh, his last name is Qi, right? So Qi as in vital life force. It's the essence of existence that flows throughout each of us, uniting the body, the mind, and the spirit, right? So let's see what happens to the king whenever he tries to cut this bottle in half. Blake, 1991, welcome. Thanks for joining the Good Vibe Tribe. Good to see you. Crushing as always, right on. All right, so he takes out his machete, fa-pow, hits the bottle. Jack catches the bottle, right? Does not break the bottle in half, and he's like, it's all in the reflexes. And then he's like, all right, well, he needs to go to the airport. And he's like, all right, I'll follow you. But then he's like, get in my truck. He's like, wait, I thought you were going to follow me, Jack. And he's like, I know. And then I came to my senses. And he says, I came to my senses because he's the king, right? The king, the royalty, the nobility of this world. They expect us to just follow them. But Jack represents somebody who is more aware, right? Somebody who's a survivor of the apocalypse, symbolically speaking. And he says, I was going to follow you, but then I came to my senses. Blake, hey, thank you for the donation, Blake. Appreciate you. He says, then I came to my senses. So that's a little, call out to us not to follow nobility just because they're nobility, just because people are in positions of power above us. They only have that power because we follow them. You want to take the power away? Stop following them, right? Just like Jack Burton. He just walks away calm and cool. And then he's like, oh, that's why the bottle didn't slice. My mind and my spirit are going north and south. Right? So his mind and his spirit as nobility, symbolically speaking of this world, right, are going north and south. Their mind is acting apart from their spiritual energy. They've been split in half. Like they're the ones who are split. So they cannot do the splitting. That's why he couldn't split the bottle. So the nobility of our world is split, right? They're not unified. They're not balanced. They're just concerned with left brain thinking. The ends justify the means and such, right? Now let's check out what bottle means real quick. He couldn't cut the bottle, so what does bottle mean? Now it says diminutive of late Latin butis, which means a cask. If you look up cask, it says it means skull. Interesting. So the nobility could not split the skull, or you could say partition the mind. To split the mind, right? To put splits within the mind. To put splits within the mind is these forms of spell casting that they do to their subjects and to their people, so that they're not of one mind, right? So that they can't think clearly. Now, if you look up, they're looking for a girl, so he has to take them to the airport to go pick up this chick named Meow. So if you look up the word meow, this is the word meow right here. It's kind of like how a cat says meow. This is meow. This is the glyph for meow at the very least. And if you look it up, it says that it means a fruit, reality, truth, and actuality. So the girl, who we're going to find out has green eyes, this girl Meow that they're going to find, they're trying to look for her, right? She's the treasure. She's the lost treasure. She's the stolen treasure. She represents like Sophia, or the inner earth energy that is retracted and is being kept within a tower or a castle or whatever, like a princess in video games and stuff, right? Or even in the movies. They're looking for the truth. They're actually truth seekers seeking out Meow, and her name means truth and reality, right? They're looking for these things. So they're truth seekers. And this is the truth seeker's path. Now, it also means feminine given name, which means wonderful, clever, ingenious, excellent. In other words, wise, wisdom. This is Sophia. It's the goddess of wisdom, symbolically speaking, which is represented by these two girls that you'll meet, both of them here in just a bit. Now, is yin the black one? Because she also represents the yin of the yin and the yang. Now, in the symbol, yin is represented by the black color. Now, that is the castle color that spirit is hiding in, or has been kidnapped and is being held captive in a black castle or a dark building or a dark tower, because it goes down into Mount Meru, which is called Rupus Nigra, which is the black high and lofty cliff or high and lofty tower or mountain, which is affectionately called by myself the plasma volcano. And he's like, she's got beautiful eyes like creamy jade. Her eyes are green. That's really interesting. We're going to check out what green eyes mean here in just a bit. But we check out Meow Yin, and she's at the airport. She picks up her only package, which is baking soda. Of all things, a big box of baking soda. I don't know how much you all know about baking soda, but it's one of the best things that you can use to cleanse things with, right? I brush my teeth with baking soda. I will drink some baking soda every day, sometimes a few times a day. It's very good. It's an alkaline part of the earth that helps to balance out and neutralize acids that build up, right? The acids are the things that eat away and degrade the body and other physical objects. So here she is. This is Miao Ying. Oh, and then Jack Burton sees another girl with green eyes, Gracie Law. And we're going to meet Gracie Law. She's going to be a character throughout the movie. She also has green eyes. And he's totally trying to hit on her, right? He's trying to pick her up at the airport, and she's like, nah, I don't think so. I'm good. And then they see these gang members, these Chinese gang members, and you can see another appearance by the yin and the yang there again. Also notice the black and white symbolism, right? Black and white representing the space travelers, or fractalverse travelers is what I like to call them. You'll see that a lot in like Freemasonry, which is also throughout this movie as well. We'll get into that. And she's like, don't mess with them. They're the lords of death. The lords of death. Interesting. So these lords of death capture symbolically the spirit of our world, which is represented by Miao Ying. The lords of death represent the bad energy that is currently in the world and filling up. All of that red plasma that comes into our world is here to destroy things and to kill things because it acts as a cleaner. It cleans house. It sweeps things away. It helps to reset everything. Then that blue beam, that good energy that shoots up from within the earth, helps to restore things. It's a restorative energy. One is a destructive energy. One's a restorative energy, right? So whenever that blue beam energy that restores gets retracted and it pulls back down into the earth to charge, that means that the only thing left is all of that bad energy that just entered into the world when it's sealed off once more. And that bad energy incorporates itself by going into bodies and stuff, and then they will have babies and they'll have babies, and pretty soon the world's a crazy place. As a matter of fact, that's the next thing that they say. He's like, why would someone do that? Why would anybody even do this, right? Why do people act bad? He said, because the world's full of crazy people, Jack. Hoodlums. And that's our world, in the world that we live in today. Hoodlums. People are upside down, living crazy. He says they got this sort of clubhouse thing, where they all hang out to sharpen their knives, huh? And this is what they show you. The clubhouse where they all hang out, with a little club type imagery right there in the middle. Now what you're looking at is Mount Meru. There's a fight for Mount Meru, right? The blue beam is what wants to own Mount Meru. Whenever it returns, it reclaims the throne. Right now, there's a pretender on the throne. There's a pretender energetically speaking, there's a pretender that's on the throne of Mount Meru, which affects the Schumann resonance of the entire world, which in turn affects the animals and the people and everything else in the world right now. So what you're looking at, symbolically speaking, is Mount Meru, the eye in the sky, or the opening at the top of the firmament, the top of the sky, and then the anode and the cathode on either side that create an electrical arc around Mount Meru. All right, so now we get back to Mr. Egg Shin. He drives this bus. This is his tour bus, right? With the little dragon on top. The dragon symbolism is plasma. That's why dragons in the old world, dragons aren't, like lizard looking. They undulate. They're plasma basically, right? Even further back in time, they didn't have legs. They didn't have arms or anything like that. They were just skyworms, right? Now check out the name of his bus, Egg Foo Young Tours. This is really interesting. They could have named this tour business that he has anything, right? So what is Egg Foo Young? Let's just check that out, because the movie was so kind to share that with us. I feel it's worth looking into. Egg Foo Young literally means hibiscus egg. This is a dish that you can get at many Chinese restaurants, but it means hibiscus egg. Why would they put hibiscus egg on there, right? So if we look up the word hibiscus, it means marshmallow. I say mellow, but it's mallow, right? Marshmallow. A mallow from the marsh, a flower from the marshes, or that flowers that grow up around muddy, marshy, swampy kind of areas, typically tropical type of areas, right? So the marshmallow plant, this is what it looks like. This is actually a really popular tattoo at the moment. A lot of people are just subconsciously getting the same tattoos, just like you're all subconsciously having the same dreams and drawing the same pictures and coming up with the same ideas and stuff, because we're coming to a point where everything crashes back into itself before the next apocalyptic cycle. But this is the marshmallow plant. This is what marshmallows typically are made out of. And of course, that harkens back to the Marshmallow Man, right? The Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. Now, the Ghostbusters, we did a whole breakdown on this, but after they destroyed the Marshmallow Man, he exploded, and there was all this white goo, which is marshmallow stuff or whatever, that dripped down on top of the people, right? Now, if you look up the word mallow, as in marshmallow, they don't really know the origin of it. There's a lot of grasping at straws and guessing, so I looked it up. And I can see that it's related to the word lava, L-V-A, or lua, or lui, or lua, or lu. just like we've broken down quite a few times, which is the root of the word love. It's the root of the word lava. And basically, I believe it means to flow. Something that flows, just like an energy or water or love or vibrations or frequency or plasma. It means to flow. Ma, the letter M or mem in the ancient languages means out of the water. Okay, so this mellow essentially would mean out of the water, flowing out of the water. Just like Mount Meru comes up out of a crystal lake that I'll show you here in a bit, and it flows upwards, just like the god Enki always has those two rivers that flow on either side of him, and you can usually see some fish jumping out of the rivers and stuff, right? So basically the marshmallow symbolism is it is symbolic. I'm just going to put it simple without getting too detailed into it, but it's symbolic of ambrosia. Okay, the marshmallow symbolism is symbolic of that substance that comes down and rains down from that blue beam as it shoots up and smashes into the other elements and gases and vapors that will be up in the atmosphere. And it will collide with those things, which will create little particles that will rain down in the form of ectoplasm, basically, which is why this is featured in Ghostbusters. That ectoplasm, or that gooey type of a substance, that Mountain Dew, right, as we've talked about, is charged. It's charged up energetically. So the gods, or the mighty leaders of old, or the survivors of old who lived around that blue light of the world that shot up, it would look like a giant stick figure up there in the sky, you know, Odin hanging on a tree, Jesus on the cross, etc. And it would bleed on the people down below, or it would cry on the people down below, or it would sweat on the people down below. There's many different stories that talk about this, and it would come down and it would be charged energy that comes up out of the waters or out of the river of life or whatnot, right? So it's basically, it's a form of ambrosia, or the food or the substance or liquid of the gods. Now, back to the egg symbolism, because we're talking about egg shin, right? I want to read this to you real quick. This is an origin story from China. It says, "In the beginning, the heavens and the earth were still one, and all was chaos. The universe was like a big black egg." That black egg represents Mount Meru. Keep that in mind. "Carrying Pangu." Now, this is one of the creator gods, if not like one of the main creator deities in ancient Chinese mythology. Pangu. So this black egg carried Pangu inside itself. After 18,000 years, there's also the relationship with Pan, right? The god Pan. After 18,000 years, Pangu woke from a long sleep. Another sleeping god symbolism. He felt suffocated, so he took up a broad axe and wielded it with all of his might to crack open the egg, so Mount Meru splits. The light, clear part of it floated up and formed the heavens. The cold, turbid matter stayed below to form the earth. Pangu stood in the middle, his head touching the sky, his feet planted on the earth. The heavens and the earth began to flow at a rate of 10 feet per day, or began to grow at a rate of 10 feet per day. I like that it says that the earth grows, because I also believe that the earth grows. And Pangu grew along with them. So the bigger that the earth got and the sky got and everything, Pangu, which is the blue beam that shoots up, and Atlas that holds up the sky, etc., also grows and got bigger and bigger and brighter and brighter. And that is one of their creation stories. Now here's a little statue of Pangu. As you can see, he's the squatter man. He's squatting down, right? One leg represents the anode, the other leg represents the cathode. At the bottom of Mount Meru, the blue beam shoots up, and then it spreads out at the top, and he's bursting forth out of the egg, the black egg of Mount Meru, which is the split mountain, or split mountain symbolism. Here's another picture of Pangu holding up the sky, just like Atlas did. His weapon, these weapons of these types of gods are usually hammers or axes or something that has a beam and then a fulcrum that goes, that allows, to split off at the top, because it's a small symbol of themselves, basically. It shoots up the Irminsul, the tree of the world, the tree of life, etc., the cross, the crucifix, the cruciform. Here's another representation of Pangu holding up the sky as he stands on the ground as he broke out of the earth. So he says, now we call Gamshan the mountain of gold. See? Now he's giving a backstory. He's a little tour guide. He's giving all the people a backstory on Chinatown and San Francisco and how, you know, back during the days of the gold rush that these Chinese men had gold fever and they were trying to come out and find this mountain of gold in California, which is actually what California originally was called at that time. It was referred to as the Mountain of Gold to try to get more people to come out west, basically. So this Mountain of Gold symbolism is really interesting. It's actually, there's a prophecy in the Quran, or maybe not in the Quran, but one of the hadiths, which are sort of like the book of Proverbs. If you're a Christian, then the Quran also has their version of like Proverbs and things like that. So it says, the messenger of Allah said that the hour will not come to pass before the river Euphrates dries up to unveil the mountain of gold, for which people will fight. People will fight over this mountain of gold, killing each other, and only 1 out of 100 people will actually survive and make it. I'm not sure if that's because they're killing each other or if that's because that mountain of gold is electrical and it zaps and shocks, you know, anybody that tries to touch it, which is one of the reasons why, like Aladdin and all these types of stories where people go into like some kind of cave of treasures, they're always told like, don't touch any of the treasures, don't touch any of this stuff, because most of it's metallic and most of it will carry an electrical charge. And if it's connected to the earth, which is highly electrically charged in that particular location, you could die, you know? So they say, don't be selfish. Don't try to take the treasure or whatever, right? Now, let's take a look over at the old Pork Chop Express, huh? The old Pork Chop Express. This is what Jack Burton drives in. They could have named his truck anything. They could have not named his truck at all, and then the story still would have been awesome, right? It's pretty awesome, though. Why is he called the Pork Chop Express, right? He delivers pigs to Chinatown so they can chop them up and eat them. This is very interesting to me. So let's take a look at the pig symbolism and how it's related to the people who are eating them. Now, here's an article that's a little bit older, but it says the first human-pig hybrid embryo has been created in the lab, and you are looking at it, right? Some scientists out there who are publicly known have already created a human pig embryo. And what they say is they allowed it to grow to about 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, and then they killed it, right? They just killed this little pig human embryo or whatever. Now imagine what they don't tell us. Imagine what they're not telling us. Now another question is, how is it that you could even do this? How is it that pigs and humans seem to be so compatible when we can create our own chimera, our own crossbreeds of humans and pigs? Also, pigs are often used to tattoo. We practice tattooing them because their skin is extremely similar to our skin, so we use them for that. We also can grow human organs inside of pig bodies because their physical composition is extremely similar to the composition of our own bodies, from body dimension to cardiovascular system. Their pancreas, their circadian rhythm is the same, their eyes are the same, their gastrointestinal tract is the same, their kidneys are the same, and their skin is the same. Now, there are many myths and many legends that refer to animals being changed into humans and vice versa, and humans being changed into animals. Pigs are no exception, and we find this across the board. Especially, we can see it, popping up in our fiction and our fantasy in the form of like pig-faced orcs or human-like pigs or whatnot that are shown to us and portrayed. Oftentimes, they're colored green as well. You'll notice that too. A lot of times when they show you these sort of pigmen, they're green in color. That indicates that pigs are not green, obviously, like not the ones that we have normally, right? But maybe they're reflecting a green aura or a green color that is up there in the sky, green plasma. So here's some examples. Sometimes they give these orcmen, like, which rhymes with pork, which is interesting, orc and pork. Mork and Mindy comes to mind. Anyways, they give these guys, sometimes they give them a pig nose, sometimes they give them like a wild boar jaw with tusks and stuff like that, right? Here's a pretty popular image of Donald Trump's eye versus a pig's eye. You can see the similarities between the two there. That's pretty interesting. there's a biblical story. Now this gets really interesting and deeper. There's a biblical story in the Bible. Jesus is walking, and there's a couple of different versions of it, but basically he's walking and he sees a possessed guy, or sometimes a couple of possessed guys, and they have all these evil spirits inside of them. They're possessed by these evil demons. So he calls out to these evil demons. They have this conversation, and the demons are like, oh my God, don't take us out of this body. They still want to be inside of a body. This is what spirits desire, right? Like they want to experience the physical world, but they can only do that by being inside of something that's physical themselves, so they can drive it around like a machine or a car, right? So Jesus casts out all of the demons from within the human body and puts them into pigs. So what was once the spirit of a man, or the many spirits that lived inside of a man, now lived inside of a huge flock of pigs that went and jumped off of a cliff. Now there's an esoteric and hidden story about Jesus and pigs that many people don't know about. It says, and then Christ turned the children into pigs, a curious miracle in the late medieval period in England. So there is a story about little boy Jesus. Remember how we were talking about how like the Bible doesn't really get into like the childhood of many of its main characters like Moses and Jesus and whatnot, right? Well, the story goes, and this is found in many ancient medieval manuscripts, right? Even a Bible that was made, a picture form Bible that was made in the 1300s. The picture of the boy in the middle with the halo around his head is thought to be Jesus, the little boy Jesus. And what happens is in this scene over here on the left, he's asking if he can play with the Jewish kids, but the parents are like, oh, go hide. And they put their kids in an oven, and they shut the oven. And Jesus comes up and he sees the oven, and the parents are trying to hide the kids in the oven so that they don't play with Jesus. And he's like, well, what's inside of the oven? And they're like, oh, well, it's just pigs. We're just cooking some pigs. And Jesus says, so be it. So be it. And the second he says that, he takes off, he leaves. And when they open up that oven, their kids, their children, are pigs now. They're pigs in the oven. And here's some more examples of this that you can see. Here's little baby Jesus, or not baby, his little kid Jesus. And he's clearly pointing at this oven right here. And the people are like, oh, what's inside the oven? And here's another one with all these bearded men. They're looking at the oven. They're in mourning because their children have turned into pigs. Let me get this a little bigger so you can see it. So you can see right there that their children have turned into pigs. Here's another example. This is Jesus in front of the oven asking, hey, what's in here? What's in here? This was a common story at the time in the Middle Ages. Here's another example of it. This one, I don't know if this one has Jesus in it. I don't know if Jesus is in this one, but basically this is the oven. These are the pigs that are coming out of the oven. These are all the people who are surprised and shocked and going into mourning because all of the children have been changed into animals. This is called therianthropy, right? Therianthropy exists throughout much of our ancient myths and legends where people have been changed into animals. How could that happen? How could people change into animals, right? Well, here's a story from the goddess Circe. Some people would say Kerke, but I like to call her Circe. Boogled! Hey, thanks for your donation. All right, so this goddess named Circe, she is featured in Homer's The Odyssey, right? She gets really upset at this band of soldiers or whatnot, and she tricks them into drinking this special substance. And the moment that they drink this special substance, she takes her magic wand and she changes them into pigmen or into swine, essentially, right? So maybe there's stuff that is inside of our DNA that's foreign, that doesn't belong there. They say you are what you eat. Maybe it's you will become what you eat, given the right circumstances, given enough electrical energy or magic or power in this world. Be careful what you eat. There are ancient dietary laws that say don't eat certain things, right? Because if you do, you're going to start incorporating that DNA will be fed into your body and you'll start sharing different attributes of the things that you eat, right? Just like in the movie The Fly, when Jeff Goldblum goes into that pod and all that electricity goes in there, it takes the DNA and it tries to merge them. It tries to make sense of two totally different DNA strands, combining them into one, creating a mutant form, which is why in the old world, back in the Middle Ages and even before that, they have all of these strange stories about mutant types of people, humanoids, from the Blemmies to, you know, people that had a giant foot that they hung over their head to stay in the shade, and really strange, weird humanoid type people, right? And even if you look at the Enuma Elish and the story, the origin story for like the Babylonian creation epic and stuff, it talks about how the gods came down and they experimented with the DNA of different humans, and there was all these weird genetic like mutations basically that, you know, didn't really make it because, you know, it's the survival of the fittest, and they weren't able to eat sometimes, they weren't able to go to the bathroom sometimes, they weren't able to procreate sometimes, but there was a lot of weird, strange mutants that evolved all at one time around the same period of time. So basically that's all of this energy that comes into our world in the form of ionized hydrogen that comes down from above, and of course the ionized oxygen that comes up too. But that ionized hydrogen reacts with anything that it touches, okay? So it's my personal belief that this plasma and the plasma apocalypse that we go through has the ability to mutate and to change what we call junk DNA, and, you know, all the leftover parts of the DNA in our body, and even the stuff that might be in your stomach and stuff. It has the ability to change it all and manipulate all of it. Now, here's the story of Circe. I'll actually read this to you. So this is directly from the Odyssey, and it says, this is the story of her turning the warriors into pigs. It says, "Soon in the luscious feast themselves they lost, and drank oblivion of their native cost. Instant her circling wand the goddess waves, to hogs transformed them, and a sty receives. No more was seen the human form divine, head, face, and members bristle into swine. Still cursed with sense their minds remain alone, and their own voice affrights them when they groan. Meanwhile the goddess in disdain bestows the mast and acorn brutal food and strows. The fruits and kernel of their feast around, now prone to groveling on unsavory ground." So that's, excuse my accent, okay, I don't know if you can understand me, but basically she turned them all into pigs after they were being pigs at a feast. They were stuffing themselves, you know what I mean? They were acting like pigs, and guess what? They turned into pigs. That was from Homer's The Odyssey, which was written, you know, around 3,000 years ago, basically. Now, here's a prophecy from Nostradamus, which is really interesting, which talks about pig people. It says, "At night they will think they have seen the sun, when they see the pig half-man. Noise, screams, battles seen, fought in the skies. The brute beasts will be hard to speak." This is another prophecy of Nostradamus that mentions people seeing half pigs, half humans at a time when the sun seems to come out at night, which is not the point of focus that we call the sun today, but it's the red eye in the sky that illuminates the sky, which is the depressurization point in our atmosphere up there that allows us to see that ionized hydrogen that will come down in snake form. And that's from Nostradamus from 1503 to 1556. Also, let's see what else we have here. Oh, this is this one's actually in the Quran. So this is in the Quran 560. It says, "Then say to them, shall I tell you about those whose retribution with Allah is even worse? They are the ones whom Allah has cursed, and who incurred his wrath, and some of whom were changed into apes and swine, and who served the false deities." So this plasma that comes down, right, the ionized hydrogen, has the ability to mutate things, to change chemical bonds, to pull bonds apart, to put bonds together, to loosen bonds or to strengthen bonds, right? And oftentimes that means putting two things together, right, into one, mutating them. All right, so here's another example, classic from Willow, right? In Willow, there was this evil witch, and she comes out and she changes Mad Mardigan, or whatever his name was, changes him into a pig person. And all right, back to the movie. So Jack and his buddy, Wang, they turn down this alley, and you'll notice that there's a lot of fog that's starting to pop up in this movie all over the place. That's the depressurization symbolism, right? When you see all that fog, it's a low pressure system or whatever. All right, so you see all this fog and these bad guys that are wearing red. They symbolize the red plasma, the ionized hydrogen from above, right? But notice his weapon, a butcher's knife, right? He's an animal killer, somebody that chops up animals to eat them. That's really interesting because, like I said, if you have that animal DNA in you, right, it's all running all throughout you, there's a chance, you know, if you're close, you could get turned into an animal. Therianthropy. All right, so Wang looks down. He says, these guys are animals, Jack. Isn't that something? The movie actually calls these people animals. Now, he is saying that they're wild or they're savage or whatever, but he's also telling us they are animals. And they're saying this from the Pork Chop Express. All right, so the guys in red, they're about to go to war with the guys in white. It's actually the guys in yellow. The guys in white are at the front. The guys in yellow are the warriors in the back or whatever. The yellow color represents, yellow will look more white whenever we go through a color shift or a color spectrum change. And we get into the golden age. When the sky is golden, anything that is along that red spectrum will change. The colors will change in our world. So yellow will be more of a white color, which is why they have the guys in the white up front. And then red will look very red. Now, there's this green burst of fire, and they're like, oh my God, what is that? And they look, and there's all this weird, sort of a liquidy type of a green stuff, and then these weird ninjas, these three ninjas pop out, right? There's the lightning ninja, who's basically Raiden from Mortal Kombat, and he's controlling the lightning. All of these are symbolic of the elements themselves, and what the elements begin to do during the polarity shift that we go through. So this guy's shooting his lightning out, and you can see his eyes light up too. So we've also mentioned that when we talked about Moses, right? Did Moses have horns in that last video presentation we did? We talked about how it might be that his eyes actually lit up because his spirit was energetically charged and amplified from his meeting or his encounter at Mount Meru or Mount Sinai or whatever, the plasma volcano. So his spirit is charged and he's able to shoot light out of his eyes or whatever, right? Then we got this guy who's got some weird funky ninja weapon, which basically when you look at it, it says 101. And he puts them together like that. He could have put them together any kind of way, right? But they purposefully wanted to show you this. This is the anode, the Mount Meru, the hole in the world, or you could say that's the hole in the sky. Either way, as above, so below. And the cathode. Okay, so this is the 101 symbolism. This is the beginning of all things. This is the Garden of Eden. This is where everything starts. Hyperborea. This is where things begin in our world. So 101. And then this guy is like the back scratcher ninja. I don't know. He's here, you know, in case you got a really bad itch or something. I don't know. I'm not too scared of this dude. He's not super intimidating. All right, now we meet Lo Pan. Now Lo Pan is standing there. You'll notice a lot of nail symbolism with Lo Pan. Lo Pan represents the imposter who is now sitting on the throne of God in the form of that bad energy, that negative vibe or that negative energy, which is changing the Schumann resonance of the world. That energy does not want to go. Okay, that energy wants to stay and rule the world for as long as it can. That's why he has the nail through his head. It's the Vav or the nail symbolism as well. And he's daring him to run him over. So he smashes right into Lo Pan. Pow! Knocks him down. He's like, oh my God, I think it was Lo Pan. Let's check out Lo Pan. Lo Pan is a real entity, a real character in China. They actually have a temple dedicated to Lo Pan. Now, his original name was probably closer to Luban. Luban. Now, if you look it up and you check this out, it says Luban is revered as the god of carpentry and masonry. Interesting, just like Jesus was the god of carpentry or a carpenter, you know, in his human form or whatever. Hey, Charlie, thank you so much. Just donated $50. Thank you so much. Cheers. Cheers back to you, Charlie. I appreciate you. Right on. All right, so Lo Pan is an imitation Jesus, okay? He's the Antichrist version of Jesus, okay? He's trying to imitate Jesus. He's the carpenter or whatever. Whoever sits on the throne gets to shape the world, basically. Whoever sits at Mount Meru, whatever energy is in charge at Mount Meru is the house builder, gets to build the house. And masonry. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. He's the god of masonry as well. You see that down there? Lo Pan, or Luban, is the god of masonry and carpentry. Here is a statue of Lo Pan, or Luban, in China. As you can see, he's doing the spread eagle. He's putting his arms up just like Atlas, or just like Jesus on the cross, or just like Odin hanging from the tree. But look right behind him. There's a big sky bird, a cosmic bird on his back as well. Because at the same time, not only is it Jesus and Odin and all these other characters, Atlas, that hold their arms up and spread them out, etc., up there as a cosmic entity, as the blue beam shoots up from Mount Meru and spreads out towards the ceiling of our world. But it starts to create little auras and eddies and stuff like that, which creates feathers, or gives an appearance of feathers, which is the thunderbird, the bluebird of happiness, the phoenix symbolism, etc. This is the phoenix phenomenon that shoots up. It's the blue beam that shoots up from the earth, branches out, spreads out, creates the tree of life symbolism with all the various branches and stuff, and it creates these auras that look like feathers, which give us the phoenix that rises from the ashes and is always reborn. All right, so here is Lopan. Lopan, it looks like a clown. Doesn't he look like a clown? He is a clown. As are the entities who are in charge of this earth right now. They're clowns, man. They're killer clowns from outer space. Typically, you'll see them with this painted white face. They're just albino looking, right? Lopan has that too. But he's plasma possessed. He's got an amplified energy, right? Lopan doesn't represent an actual human, okay? In the movie, it's just cartoonified. He represents an energy. Now, all this energy shoots out of his eyes, and he actually uses that to blind people, to possess people, just like a vampire, right? In the vampire symbolism, just like in that movie that we just broke down with Nicolas Cage, the vampire movie, right? How vampires can like mind control people. So all this light shoots out of his mouth, out of his eyes, these 3 holes in the face, and it blinds Jack Burton. He covers his eyes immediately, right? And he's like, don't look, don't look. He's like, I already did. And he says, I can't see. So Jack looks into the lights and he becomes blinded. If he would have stayed there, he would have been possessed, basically. This is what I like to call the deadlights, and that comes from Stephen King's book It, or the movie It, right? Pennywise has the deadlights inside of him. He is actually controlled by the deadlights. Pennywise on the outside is just a shapeshifter because he represents plasma, the red plasma that comes down, right? But these are the deadlights. These are the lights that you do not stare into. When the sky opens up, there will be lights that come down from the heavens that you should not look at, okay? If you get a glimpse of them, whatever, I don't blame you. People are going to be curious, or they're going to try to look or whatever, but don't stare into them, because those lights will come down. They'll break off strand after strand, getting smaller and smaller, and they're coming down to possess things. They want to experience this world. So they will come down and attach and possess people, going through the eyes and charging the body and sending information into the body, as well as taking information out of the body. So it's not good to stare into the deadlights. And he says, how the hell could I run straight through him? So he ran over Lopan. And the reason he can't run straight through him is the same reason we cannot land on the moon. Because he's not physical. Okay? Lopan represents energy, represents plasma, basically, right? Now, there's all this fighting going on and stuff. And you can see in the background, there's even a sign in blue, or baby blue, that says celestial, right? This is a celestial war. This is the war in the heavens. This is whenever, there's all this war between, energetically speaking, the blue beam, or the blue energy, and the red plasma hydra that comes down, the blue sword, which is like the electric sword, or the naked blade, which is what it's referred to in this movie later on. And there's also a physical war, right? There seems to be, the legends indicate that there's actual war between those who drop down from the sky, which would be your alien invasion that a lot of people are talking about, and those who come up out of the earth, right? The earthen aliens, or the terrestrial aliens that come up from within the hollow recesses of Terra, or our Earth, and those who drop down and float down from the sky during the depressurization event. And then there's us, who are caught in the middle. We're the ones who are sort of caught in the middle of all of it. They have more knowledge than we do, it seems, so they know what's happening, and they immediately start to fight each other over territory at the North Pole, Mount Meru, the Arctic Circle. All right, so they're asking about those 3 ninjas, right? The back scratcher ninja, the Raiden ninja, and the 101 ninja, whatever he was. The blowing up ninja, the Cabbage Patch Kid ninja. He says they're called the 3 storms. So these 3 ninjas represent 3 storms, or 3 areas of of high energetic interference in our world, which is the anode, the cathode, and Mount Meru. Boom, those 3 storms right there. All right, so they're called the 3 storms. Jack and his buddy Wang walk away. Let's take a look at Jack's tank top real quick. That's kind of shown throughout the movie. They really make a big deal about his tank top. If you take a look at the tank top, it's got the red sun, which could also not be a red sun. It could be the eye in the sky, which is red. Okay, it's the red eye, the evil eye, etc. But take a closer look at it, and you'll see they've got this these type of Chinese people that have these sort of long mustaches and stuff. They're called the Manchu. That style is called the Fu Manchu. It's probably the root of Manchurian, if I was to guess. But anyways, this is the Manchu. You see the yin and yang symbolism, but then you see these tentacles coming off to the side right there. You see that? He's got all these weird tentacles coming out of his back. That's interesting. Coming down from the red sun, maybe? I don't know. That's interesting. All right, so we go to Wang's restaurant. Wang owns his own restaurant. It's called Dragon of the Black Pool. Why? That's interesting. Why would you name your restaurant Dragon of the Black Pool? I mean, it sounds cool. I like it. I think sounds awesome. I don't know if that's a place I would want to eat at. It doesn't sound like a healthy place. But Dragon of the Black Pool. Well, dragon is plasma or electrical energy, right? And we've talked about many stories, especially those of Native American lore, that talk about how there's a spiritual lake or an energetically amplified lake or whatnot, that these gods and demons and spiritual creatures and ghosts and stuff seem to haunt or live in, right? So Dragon of the Black Pool, plasma of the Black Pool. What is a black pool? Well, here is the black pool that they're talking about, symbolically speaking. Remember, they're on their way to Mount Meru, as is often the case. So here's Mount Meru. This lake around Mount Meru at the center of the world is pure fresh water that has not touched anything yet. This is virgin water of the earth coming up out of the earth. The earth creates this water. And then, of course, it goes into those 4 streams, right? And it actually breathes the water in. It pushes it out, breathes it back in and stuff. And this is crystal clear water, which gives you a black lake, right? I mean, it will reflect whatever's on the top, possibly, but this is the creature from the Black Lagoon symbolism. This area of the world right here was known to be infested with various types of gigantic sea monsters, those inner earth creatures that grow to huge and gigantic proportions and sizes. So, creature from the Black Lagoon. Why is it black, though? It says a few tens of meters of water will absorb light, so without scattering. All bodies of water would appear black. So if you don't have any particulates in the water, if you don't have any pollution, if you don't have any minerals or anything that's actually in there floating around like organic, life forms or whatever, salt and all that stuff, if you don't have any of that in the water, the light will not be reflected back. So the water won't have any color at all. It'll be black, which is crystal clear. Some people would call it distilled water, basically, which is right here at the center of the world. And that's why it is often called dark water or black water, right? It's the black water and the black mountain, basically right in the middle. Now, Jack gets on the phone. He says, I'm going to tell you about an accident, and I don't want to hear act of God, okay? Which is interesting because that whole encounter he just had, that symbolically was an act of God or an act of a God, I could say, right? We're talking about the gods and the goddesses of old, etc. And he says, one guy mentions the different Chinese hells, and he says the Chinese have a lot of hells, right? And they do. They have 18 hells, which is really interesting. And it says that the people they're down in these hells, or the inner earth, basically, right? These different places. It's actual real places within the earth, and people cannot die. They cannot die when they're in these hells. So you might wonder, like, well, how are people tortured in the concept of hell and stuff forever and ever, or whatever? Well, it's because you can't die. There's so much energy down there that death doesn't exist, right? You're just constantly alive. Everything is regenerating and regenerating over and over and over. It says they cannot die from the torture because when the ordeal is over, their bodies will be restored to their original states for the torture to be repeated in the 18 hells of Chinese myths and legends. It's interesting how all of these things start coming right back around full circle, right? Now, they're talking about the girls with green eyes. They're like, she's got green eyes. Why is that a big deal, having green eyes, right? I have green eyes. Enrique, good to see you. Enrique Santiago, welcome. All right, so green eyes. Let's check out some of the meanings of people who actually have green eyes. And it says people who have green color eyes possess the ability to see the physical world and heaven at the same time. Some other attributes: if you have green eyes, you are relatively rare and are often associated with mystery. People with green eyes are curious, very passionate in their relationships, and have a creative outlook on life. How many people in the chat have green eyes? I'm just wondering. Let me know. Show some green emojis if you have green eyes. I'm just wondering. There's only 2% of people in the entire world have green eyes. Did you know that? Mine are actually probably more hazelish, I guess. I'll show you here I'll show you a picture here in a minute. So, fascinating and unusual facts about green eye color. People with green eyes typically can be egocentric, competitive, skeptical, curious, cautious, intelligent, great leaders, passionate, mysterious, creative, devious, and jealous. Those are some different things about people with green eyes. I got a few donations in the chat. Big shout out to Ty Magwa. Thank you. And Cat14, thank you too. I appreciate both of you. All right, so how about hazel eyes? Hazel is basically mostly green with like a dash of gold, right? And it says if your eye color is hazel, then your eye color personality reveals that you are imaginative, determined, adventurous, and open to trying new things. You have a thing for taking risks. You're filled with strong and active energy, and you're also a deep thinker. So here's my eyes. I went out and took a picture just for this presentation. I never really knew what color my eyes were. You know, I saw it on my driver's license, but I never could tell. So I wanted to take a picture to see what you guys think. You know, I couldn't tell. This one's actually inside the house. Man, my eyes look terrible. These are my eyes inside the house, and then I went out into the sunlight so you can, you know, get a lot of good light in there. So these are mine. I think mine would be considered like greenish hazel, green, sort of a hazel color. I think hazel is about 5% in the world, and pure green is like 2% in the world. Really interesting. Sarah Breslin's in the chat and says, my hubby has green eyes and he's a Virgo too. How interesting. All right, so we get back to Raiden. Raiden comes down, totally steals the girl with green eyes, right? Who represents the goddess of wisdom. So the electricity comes and steals the girl, taking her up through the roof or whatever. And then they go back to Jack Burton and he's handed a glass of milk. They're like, here, have this, because they're trying to calm him down. I don't know how milk, I guess maybe that's what that's about. But I see so much milk symbolism in the movies, don't you? Right? People drinking milk all of the time. It's really interesting. I think that the milk symbolism is the same as the marshmallow symbolism. Basically, it's the ambrosia of the gods. It's that milky white substance that comes down as a byproduct of all of that electric blast interfering with the atmosphere and the vapor, especially the vapor. Remember, the whole world, the whole atmosphere will become vaporous because of the depressurization of the sky. So all that vapor is going to interact with that energetically charged oxygen, boom, and it's going to rain down on the people, or nearby. It'll rain down on the people or bleed on them, or however you want to see it, right? And it's likely it's going to be that color, sort of a milky white, maybe a whitish blue, whitish green color. Now we get back to Egg Shin. Egg Shin is over here performing what's called the I Ching. This is a form of divination. Divination is whenever you try to divine or to contact the gods or Mother Nature, or however you want to look at it, to predict the future, to listen. Right? This is a form of reading omens, basically. Omens are everything, okay? I share omens, a segment on my channel called Omens, and I just share with you the things I see. Those are the omens to me, right? Okay? They don't have to be omens to you. That's fine. I'm just sharing my piece of the puzzle, okay? If it fits with your piece, awesome. That's awesome. We made the puzzle a little bigger. If it doesn't, go find a piece that does fit. You know what I mean? Anyway, so he's practicing the I Ching. They use 3 coins for the I Ching. Basically, there's different methods of divination. You know, you get these things and you toss them down and you read them. You can read from the way that they land, to how long they move for, to what direction they're facing, to what they're closest to, like which one of these bones. Every single one of those bones, every single glyph on this picture, it all represents something. I don't know if he knows this or not, but even this beer bottle that's on the table also represents something, and all the other things that are nearby, which hand he uses, all of it is reciprocating an energy that comes from the earth. The earth herself collects and contains and remembers all information, and therefore all of that information is always available. It's just that, we live in an age where people have stopped being able to be in tune with that song. They're not in tune with Mother Nature any longer. So we live in the age of division and separation. So it's very difficult for people to see the connectedness and the oneness so that they can read the signs and the omens. And even a lot of people, that are into like the Bible and stuff like that, they might be like, oh, it says in the Bible, not to practice magic or divination or whatever. However, it seems a little contradictory, even though there are no contradictions, okay? Just what appears to be contradictions, right? Everything's made of truth. It's just that maybe that truth has been tied up in a knot and you need to untie it to make sense of it, right? Everything can be reconciled, I believe. Now, what you're looking at right now are the ancient Hebrew. These are just examples of these forms, these tools that they used to divine or to practice divination. They were called the Urim, this white one right here, and then the Tumim. Okay, so actually it would be like Orim, which I believe would mean lights, like aura means lights, and then the Tamim or the Tumim or the Tamim. Now Tam means like perfection or completeness, so this would be like beginning and end. It actually starts with the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, and the last letter, which is Tav. So the beginning and the end. And they used these, they would cast these stones out and they would read them because they were in tune with God and they were able to read the signs and the omens, right? Now remember, it doesn't have to be a sign and an omen to everyone else. If you see a black crow circling above, that might be a different sign and an omen to you than it would be to somebody else. And they might not even care about it, right? But let's check this out. It says right here, the Urim and the Tumim, ancient stones of divination. The Urim and the Tumim stones were used by the Hebrew high priest for divination. The act of seeking knowledge through indirect means from God, the Urim, the white, translates to curse, fault, guilt, or no, and the Tumim, the black, translates to light, truth, innocence, or yes, which is interesting because that seems kind of like they're reversed, right? So this is really interesting. People that will say like, oh, the Bible says don't practice divination, they'll be like, oh, except for this. Like, because this is actually God's power, like they'll make excuse for it. So listen, it all depends on your intentions. It all depends on the energies that you're playing with or that you're messing with or that you have inside of yourself. Okay. Like attracts like. So is it a good idea to use Ouija boards and stuff like that? If you're uninitiated, if you have no idea what you're doing, if you are not practiced and you have no spirit guides or no teachers or wizards or instructors or anything, yeah, bad idea. Don't touch it. Don't mess with it. Leave it alone. Okay. It can bring about and open bad doors. But did the ancient Hebrew high priest do that? Yep. So those are just a couple of examples. Okay. These are prevalent throughout all cultures across the world in different forms and methods. And you can use anything. You could read anything. You could toss sand on the ground. You could read that. You could use bones like some people did. You could use the I Ching coins. You could take out business cards from your wallet and throw them, and you could read it if you understood how to read signs and symbols and stuff like that. So watching my channel is one way that you can, my channel, I hope, would be a tool for you to learn how to read omens and signs and symbols and origins and glyphs and stuff like that, right? All right, back to the movie. He says, we have to gather our strength because now there's clouds and thunder. So he's reading these things. He sees clouds and thunder in what he's looking at because he's been trained to do this. He's studied in these things. And then he says, but finally we shall bring order out of chaos, which is the good news. He says that like it's good news, even though in various truther communities and stuff, they'll be like, oh, that's something the Masons say. Oh my God, that's evil. That's so bad. And of course, the Masons use that, right? This is one of their logos, Ordo ab Chao, which means order out of chaos. There will be chaos in the form of the great leveler, the plasma apocalypse, and there will become order that comes out of that. It's called the Jubilee year, right? Everything has an order to itself naturally. We live in the unnatural times. Nature will soon take the throne once again. Now, this phoenix symbolism, this is just the blue beam that shoots up and splits out at the top with the wings, the aura wings that we talked about. The feet are the anode and cathode around Mount Meru, as we've talked about too. So we'll skip on past that. He says, all movement in the universe is caused by tension between positive and negative furies. Okay, so this is electrical. This is electric universe philosophy right here. Just being given to you, truth in the movies. Positive and negative between the two. That's all movement. Now, when you hit the neutral point is when things are still, right? So when the furies are out of balance, then the people turn into demons and live forever. What he's describing is the apocalypse, right? Whenever the furies or the energy, the positive and the negative, flips around and you go through an apocalyptic cycle, right? All right, so we get back to Jack Burton and Wang. They've gone down into one of the levels of Chinese hell. They're underwater right now. You can see the green light, right, which is symbolic that they're at Mount Meru, going down under Mount Meru into the earth, and they're going down into the waters that are inside of the earth, okay? If you go down into the earth, you're going to hit another ocean, okay? There's not just one ocean on the top, there's another one underneath, okay? There's a whole bunch of water down underneath. And they even say it's salt water in the movie. So they're down there swimming around in the green ocean water or whatever, it's just light. And they see all these dead people and stuff, all these corpses, which in Chinese tradition, these would not be dead people at all. In the movie, they're dead, or they appear to be. But in reality, they would be alive people who are constantly just drowning forever or being tortured forever or whatever the case is, right? Because they're in a place, they're in the cave of Zeus, which is also called Cycros Cave. In the stories about the cave of Zeus, talk about how people tried to go down into the cave of Zeus, and Zeus wanted to kill him and hit him with a thunderbolt, but he couldn't, because you can't have mortals in the cave of saviors. You can't have mortals in the cave of life because it's life. There's no death. So you can't be immortal. The moment you're down in that cave, you're immortal. Can't die. Now you can be changed. Okay. You can be changed, but you can't die. All right. So he says, we're in the hell of the upside down sinners. So it's just another, they're in the upside down. Just another reference to being inside of the earth down there. Now we get back to Lo Pan. This is Lo Pan's alter ego. This is his fleshly version of himself. Like I don't know. In the movie, I think he's like a 2,000-year-old man or something like that. He says, this place is my tomb. I'm buried here. I cannot do the voice, okay? This place is my tomb. I'm buried here. So one, he's talking about Earth being his tomb. He's talking about Mount Meru being his tomb, etc. And the energy that is being pulled down into the bottomless pit or whatever. And he's also talking about his body. He says, my spirit is entombed in this old man's crippled body, right? Which sucks. I actually relate. I feel bad for him, you know what I mean? Because we live during a time of exponentially increasing entropy or sinful times or degradation of the physical world, right? And everything is quickening. There's a quickening where everything's getting older and older and older, quicker and quicker and quicker. I mean, look at me. For those of you who've been following me from the beginning, I didn't always look like this, right? I didn't even have a beard. I definitely didn't have gray hairs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I was clean shaven and had tight skin, and I was youthful looking when I first started doing YouTube videos. That was me 7 years ago. Every 7 years, your body's a totally different body. You're a different person on the outside, right? You may have that same spirit on the inside, but on the outside, you're different. You could go back and look at my very first video and compare it to me now. Hi. Anyways, so he says, so that I may rule the universe from beyond this grave, a girl with green eyes to satisfy Qing Ti. So let's check out Qing Ti. This is another Chinese deity, okay? He needs to satisfy Qing Ti, which is this ancient Chinese god. If we look it up, Qing Ti, it can also be pronounced Sheng Di or Sheng Di, right? These words have different pronunciations and stuff. So Qing Ti is the exact same as Sheng Di. If you look up the god Sheng Di, it says that Sheng Di is directly associated with the celestial pole, specifically the god of the sky, which doesn't mean the earth pole or the earth god that's at the North Pole, but the other god, the sky god, which is directly above it, which is that evil eye in the sky or the depressurization point where all of that ionized hydrogen comes down into our world in the form of plasma snakes. So he needs to appease Qing Ti or Sheng Di, and Jack Burton's like, so you can go off and rule the world from beyond the grave. Indeed. It's like, yes, you get it. You get it. Or check into a psycho ward, whichever comes first, huh? Which cracks me up just because he's such a joker and a clown. But that's pretty true, right? You start talking about these types of concepts, about fringe theories and ideas and alternatives and conspiracies and stuff. People are going to think that you're crazy and you lost your mind because that's not a part of the real world that we live in, or accepted reality. Now, check this out. Lo Pan starts to change, okay? He starts to light up. Now, he goes from an old man, but the moment that his spirit and his energy becomes amplified, he lights up on the inside, and that's when light comes out of his face and stuff, and he starts transforming into a young version of himself, a young Lo Pan. This is what he looks like after. Before, he's this old man, but he regenerates just like Doctor Who. Fills with light and completely changes into another person. He's allowed to continuously live and get younger every life or whatever, right? I mean, I know there's exceptions to that. Just like in Quantum Leap, right? Dr. Sam Beckett, he steps into this blue beam, into this cold plasma, ionized oxygen light at Mount Meru, and every time he changes into another person, right, or goes through his own sort of regenerative cycle, this light emanates from his body from all over the place, and he gets to live forever, skipping from life to life, hoping that each one, you know what I mean, the whole story. That's a sweet show, by the way. I know I'm kind of old school from the 90s and stuff, but if you ever get a chance to watch Quantum Leap, please do. If you're into that kind of thing, it's a great show. Anyways, let's get back to the killer clown from outer space, Lo Pan. Now, this is totally killer clown symbolism. Let's zoom in onto his mug here and check him out. Clearly, he's wearing makeup all over his white face. It's not just because of the Chinese stuff. Okay, this is where the Chinese get it from. The Chinese get this sort of geisha look, this sort of painting your face white and all this. That's not just Chinese. There's tribes the world across that paint their faces white, and then they put other colors on top of it, right, to look like they're gods. It's an elven standard of beauty. They try to look like the beings that came down from the fractalverse, and they are pale, pasty, white-skinned, vampire-looking creatures, right? And oftentimes, you know, associated with murder and stuff like that. So that's what he's looking like. He's looking like the killer clown from outer space symbolism or whatnot, right? Yeah, pasty, pale, white skin. I was going to say something else, but I totally forgot. Anyways, let's move on. All right, so Jack's in there. He's trying to rescue people, and this one chick that's in this jail, she's like, how are you going to spring us? How are you going to get us out? And he's like, I have no idea. It's just super funny because you don't want to hear that when someone's rescuing you. You want to hear that they have a plan, right? But this is what makes the best heroes. This is what makes the best explorers. This is what makes the best experiences in life, is going off of your intuition, right? Going with the flow, seeing where life takes you, right? Following your chakras, following your energies, following your intuition, which I feel is the best idea, right? So all these doomsday preppers that are out there, like checking off their little backpack checklist, like, oh, I got this, I get this. Oh, I'm way better suited to survive than my neighbor. Says who? Like, you know what I mean? It can be indiscriminate. Not only that, but if you don't have good vibes, the odds, I think, are against that. So go with your intuition. That's always the best form of magic. All right, so now Jack and Gracie Law are swimming through this sewage pipe, and he's totally flirting with her more again. Now, there's a lot of flirting and a lot of sexual tension between these two, and one of the symbols in that, since we're talking about the truth in movies, the truth there is that whenever we go through this energetic shift, right, like the sexual energy in our world is just getting degraded. Can you agree? Can we agree on that, right? Sex has just become degraded. It's not a holy thing. It's not a special thing. It's very fleshly and animalistic and hardly ever happens, you know, for a lot of people anymore. But if you look at the old stories about the golden age, the gods and the people that lived at that time, they were doing it all over the place. They were very sexually charged, you could say. Okay, they had a lot of mojo, they had a lot of energy, and they were amplified in their spirit, in their energy. And that's what happens when you get a lot of energy and a lot of amplification, right? That's one of the things that happens. So anyways, he's flirting with her, and she's like, what a pig you are, Burton. I mean, really. Now that's interesting because earlier they called those dudes animals. We're talking about the pork chop express and the possible relationship between pigs and humans, and how pigs might actually be, or have once been, humans that were changed into pigs. And there's other animals too that the legends say that they were humans, and then they were changed into different types of animals like monkeys and stuff. So maybe, you know, it's not that, maybe the whole evolution story is backwards, right? Maybe monkeys were just punished humans or something. I don't know. But anyway, she says, "You're a pig, Burton." Right? So that's another reference to humans being pigs. And then she screams because she sees this Fantazoid straight out of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 2. I think it's Razor, right? Well, some sort of mutant Fantazoid, hairy, Bigfoot-looking creature from the underworld, right? Which these things do exist. So he picks her up, takes her into this little thing, kidnaps her because she has green eyes too. So they're kidnapping all the green-eyed people in the world. And then her buddy's out there, and she says, this is like some kind of radical Alice in Wonderland. That's exactly what they're telling you. This movie is Alice in Wonderland. It's the same story being told over and over. Alice in Wonderland is about a transition. It's about a shift from one world to another, just like Coraline, just like John Carter of Mars, just like so many stories where we shift from one paradigm to a brand new one, right? It's not that you have to leave this world and travel millions of miles to get to some crazy world. No, this world, you stay right here. I promise you, it's going to change. You'll wake up one day and it'll be a different place, an alien world, a wonderland. It'll be like Neverland, right? Totally different place. So he's talking about the girl who can tame the burning blade. So he's looking for a girl who can tame the burning blade. The burning blade represents Excalibur. Okay, so if you want to learn more about Excalibur and the Excalibur symbolism, I did a really great breakdown when we did our Truth in Movies, Monty Python, and the Holy Grail, which is a total Mandela effect because it should be Monty Python and the search for the Holy Grail. But I guess that never existed now. That's weird. Anyways, the burning blade is Excalibur. Okay, it is the blue beam. It's the sword of truth that shoots up out of the earth, and that's in its beam form. Or when it goes up and it splits, then it looks like it has a handle splitting at the top, and it's like a sword in the stone or in Mount Meru, right? In the rock, stuck in the rock. All right, so he says, I need to find the girl who can tame the burning blade. Miao Yin or Grace? Law. Grace. So these are the two factors that can tame the burning blade. These are the types of energetic frequencies you should want to have if you plan on making a trip to Mount Meru to go into the Cave of Saviors and hunker down for the apocalypse and to enjoy the byproducts that the blue beam gives to people, like ambrosia and longer lifespans and regenerative qualities and stuff. There is a frequency. There seems to be an energetic field or barrier, right, or wall that is in place to keep out opposing energetic forces, right? Or bad guys, basically. Evil people, right? So you need to match that frequency to pass through. All right, so they're going down inside of the hollow recesses of the world. And he says, black blood of the earth, which is, Jack thinks he's talking about oil, right? But there's two things it could be. Oil is black blood of the earth. Oil is ancient life that's been crushed up to a pulp during the last apocalyptic cycle, and the one before that, and the one before that, right? All this time, there's a lot of life that dies, okay? A lot of plant life, a lot of animal life, a lot of human life and stuff, and it goes somewhere into the earth. It all gets pulled down. Everything gets pulled down into the earth, right? And it creates black goo or whatnot. 1,000 years ago, huge earthquakes turned the world upside down. And he's telling this story about the last apocalypse 1,000 years ago, an eon, an age, right? And the world was turned upside down. The people that witnessed the last depressurization event, or even sometimes the last, Phoenix event or whatever, it doesn't have to be a depressurization for the beams to come out. I just want to remind people that. But the people who lived during the last plasma apocalypse cycle saw the earth turn upside down. Or at least to them, it was turning upside down. The sky itself looked like it fell down closer to from the heavens as the optics in our world changed, as the light spectrum shifted, and it looked like the heavens or the sky was way closer than it would be. Also, as physical parts of the sky actually fell. And the waters the ocean waters floated up all the way up and got sucked up out during increased buoyancy during the depressurization of the atmosphere. So the ocean goes up, everything's upside down, just like in Pirates of the Caribbean when they show you like Jack Sparrow and his ship goes upside down. Same exact apocalyptic symbolism. Many normal people were killed. So don't be normal. Like, don't be normal. He says many normal people were killed. So be abnormal, be different, be special, and revel in that. Many unnatural people roam free to commit great offenses against the gods. And then, brah, this monster Fantazoid giant bug thing with plasma-possessed eyeballs comes screaming out from a cave, snatches up some dude, and pulls him into it. And he's like, there's a funny part, I didn't record it, but he's like, he throws this like flashbang grenade at it or whatever, and he's like, you will come out no more. And Jack Burton's like, what? What will come out no more? What the hell was that, right? Listen, inside of the earth, inside of the hollow portions of the earth, there are weird, monstrous, fantastic creatures and beasts, okay? Some are kind, some are nice, but you don't know which ones are which. So exercise extreme caution when you do go through the apocalypse, or if you are traveling down into cave systems and spelunking and, you know, cave diving or whatever, be careful, because there are monsters down there. There are alien creatures down there. There are Fantazoids that live down inside of the earth, and there are energetic barriers that keep many of them down there. But one day those barriers will be released, and they will come up and fly up and crawl up. And he says, now he's listening to Lopan, and Lopan says, to appease the god of the east. Now, Lopan worships that heavenly deity that we were talking about and referenced earlier, right? So why does he say the god of the east? It's because east is up, right? Not a lot of people know that. East these days is just infinitely left, I guess, right? And west is just infinitely right. Just keep on going right or whatever. But that's not, you know, we weren't that stupid in the old world. In the old world, west was down into the earth. East was upwards towards the sky, okay? So those who know that east is up. Now, he says, what's in the flask, egg? Magic potion? Yeah, I thought so. Good. What do we do? Drink it? He's totally nervous, and he's trying to sound like a tough guy. He's trying to sound like he knows what he's doing and stuff. Totally cracks me up. He's like, what do we do? Drink it? Yeah, good. I thought so. Let's do this, right? He's winging it. He's going with the flow. He's following his intuition, right? Now they meet this weird looking thing, this little ball with like, it looks like this thing, you know, broke off of the wall from the labyrinth. You remember how the labyrinth had all those weird eyeball looking deals on it, right? So this thing's called a guardian. And it says what it sees, Lopan knows. So Lopan, who represents like the red plasma that comes down from the sky and then makes a home around Mount Meru or inside Mount Meru, right? As well as the rest of the world. This thing, whatever this is, whatever it sees, Lopan knows. That's because this thing right here is not a physical object. We know this because Jack tries to shoot it. Doesn't work. It flies away. Jack's like, well, you never know until you try. That's because physical weapons will not work against spiritual enemies. And by spiritual, I mean energetic forces. You can't shoot ball lightning with a gun and hope that it goes away. Maybe if you load a shotgun with salt, you know, like the same methods that you would use to hunt ghosts and stuff like that, that might work out a bit better. Or a taser, or fire, or even a pointed sword. Actually, a pointed sword would work much better than bullets and stuff, because a pointed sword acts as a lightning rod, but it's not like you could slice it or anything like that, okay? You just want to keep the point end pointed at it, which will repel it. But you don't want to just try to slice it or anything. You just keep it pointed at it, right? Anyways, and then it shows a close-up of the Fantazoid beast man looking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 2 monster, whatever it is, right? I don't know if that's supposed to be like a version of Bigfoot or what that's supposed to be. I'm not sure. But I don't know. It's got pointy ears, so that's kind of interesting. This could be an aged elf that has the T-virus. I don't know what that's supposed to be. But something that lives inside of the earth. What do you guys think? Bigfoot? Beastman? Toka and Razor? I don't know what that is. All right, so he picks up this potion, and he says, this does what exactly again? There's all this little steam coming up out of the cup, and he's like, huge buzz. Huge buzz. So this is the ambrosia that they're about to drink, basically. Okay, this is the energized ectoplasm that is a byproduct of the blue beam that comes out, which is Jesus's blood. You know how like when people say bless you, the word bless means blood. And specifically, it means the blood of Jesus, not just any blood, okay? And Jesus would be the blue beam symbolically, right? And it rains down, just like Uranu. We talked about Uranu or Uranuos, another sky god, right? Uranu is called such because like the word urine means to fall down water, to rain down from the sky. Basically, it's the exact same thing, and that's why we get urinate, which is to make water fall down and stuff like that. So all these different gods share various similarities. So he's going to drink this ambrosia. He's going to drink this energetically amplified substance, this ectoplasm, and it gives him a huge buzz because it fills him with electricity. It fills him with power. This stuff is electrically charged itself, and he's going to drink it, which means he's going to, he loves sipping on his little shot too, right? Like I don't know how to do it. Anyways, you know what this reminded me of? This reminded me of that little cup that they give Atreyu in the Neverending Story. Remember, they give him that little power shot, you know, after him and the dog dragon land up on that cliff, right, on their trip to Mount Meru. And they give Atreyu this little shot, and she says, "Oh, there's good stuff in there. There's Eye of Newt." That's interesting, right? The Eye of Newt. Newt is the Egyptian sky goddess. So I thought that was interesting that they put the Eye of Newt in that one little shot glass that Atreyu had. So huge buzz. They down their ambrosia. He says you can see things no one else can see. That's because your energy becomes so amplified that you're able to see into the spirit world or the energetic world, right? And you don't just see with your eyes, you sense. Okay, there is a sensing of things. Many people who can see into other realms or dimensions and stuff like that, they're not using physically what they see with their eyes and the light that's coming in from their eyes. That can be manipulated, and you can see things differently with your actual eyes. If you remember our breakdown of They Live, right? Actually, the sunglasses that he wears at the very beginning are actual props from They Live. So those are They Live sunglasses that Jack wears at the very beginning when he's in the Pork Chop Express wearing sunglasses during a dark and stormy night for some reason, right? Probably because he's so energetically amplified, he needs the sunglasses. But anyways, those are officially, you can look it up. They're They Live sunglasses. They're actually props that they used. You can see things no one else can see. You can see auras and stuff like that. You can sense things. It's a sixth sense. Now, some of us, you can have your abilities amplified, and some of you don't need it at all. Some of you don't need these things. Some of you don't need, to do different types of substances to heighten your senses or whatever. Some of you have so much damn power that you can't even sleep at night. You're constantly charged. You're constantly thinking. You're constantly feeling. And it's almost like you want it turned off sometimes. I know what you're going through. Back to the movie. He says, hey, what more can a guy ask for, right? Then some ambrosia to drink, give you a huge buzz. And he goes, a 6-demon bag. He's so excited. It took him super seriously, right? What more can you ask for? Terrific. Okay, 6-demon bag. Great. He's like, didn't want to know the answer to that. It's got wind and fire and that sort of thing. So, once again, the weapons that you fight against spiritual forces are not physical weapons often. There's always exceptions and anomalies, but you want to use spiritual things in a spiritual war against energetic opponents. Now, they down their ambrosia, they're in the elevator chilling, and he's like, I feel pretty good. Right? I imagine you would after doing a shot of, the drink of the gods as it starts to make its way throughout your body, right? So he's like, yeah, I feel kind of invincible, right? And then he says, I got a very positive attitude about this. You see how they're all smiling and they're filled with good vibes and they're very happy, right? They have no fear. Fear has been eradicated after drinking this shot of ambrosia. Right? Or you could call it whatever you want to, right? There's many different words for the drink of the gods, the nectar of the gods. I'm going to actually take a drink of this right now. This is my naked drink, green machine. I don't know what's in it, but it's got veggies. All right, cool. So he says, I got a very positive attitude. That's because ambrosia is positively charged, okay? It's electrically charged towards the positive spectrum. So he says, oh, now they're listening to Lopan once more. He says, oh, great Ching Ti, equal with heaven. Remember, the sky god that he worships, equal with heaven. Come into our presence. And then he goes into this retro neon, synthwave hideout or whatever. Come into our presence and witness this holy matrimony. Now, we've talked about this before too, the cosmic marriage, right? Oftentimes in these apocalyptic types, or at least symbolically apocalyptic types of movie, there's some sort of a marriage that's happening that you have to prevent. We did this. This was a huge one we did in Jupiter Ascending, which was also another recommendation by all of you. So thank you for leaving your recommendations in the community tab. So Jupiter Ascending had this, Spaceballs has this, The Princess Bride has this. There's all of these times when you have to stop this cosmic wedding, because if these two people get together and unite, that will bring about the apocalypse. Basically, it's a marriage between Mother Earth and the sky goddess and Mother Earth, right? So the girls with green eyes, Mother Earth, and the sky god, who he's praying to right now. And he says, the needle of love. So here's your needle symbolism. He's got one in his head there. That's the hook, that's the needle, that's the column, the pillar, the beam, etc. You who shake the heavens, he's praying to his God, and descend from the east. Now, how do you descend from the east? He should say come from the east if east is left or right, whichever direction you're facing, right? East totally changes, like whatever direction you're facing. It's either to the left or to the right. But east is up. So that's why this god descends from the east, because east is up. Now, like a vampire, like killer clowns from outer space would do, he starts trying to suck the blood right out of her veins there. And then he has a fight, okay? He gets his little joystick, pinky joystick controller, right? And he starts like trying to fight. He blasts out his energy. He's got the green light because he's from Mount Meru. Right? He's taken over. Doesn't mean he's a good guy. It just means that's the location, right? And Egg Shin represents the purple, or the purple chakra, right? The king chakra, the enlightened chakra. And they're doing this sort of retro synthwave futuristic video game fight deal, right? Where they have their dudes up there fighting each other, and they're totally going at it, trying to fight each other with their little plasma retro whatever they're doing, right? Egg Shin's over there. Shra! This is an energetic fight, okay? Spiritual warfare. That's what they're showing you, okay? You experience this every time you go out into the world. It's just, it might not look like that to you in your physical eyes, but like I said, to those of us who can see, those of us who can see with the senses, we sense and we pick up on things, this is actually what we see. The world can be a very entertaining place when you just change your perspective. When you stop looking with your physical eyeballs, like robots, and you start sensing with your inner eye, right? This is the kind of stuff you'll see in the world. So the next time you see bad guys coming up to you, imagine them doing this and like trying to fight you, playing the little pinky controller. And I promise you will laugh and not be so mad at the bad guys and not be so tempted to resort, and stoop down to their levels. And they're trying to recruit you, really. That's what every spiritual battle is. They're not trying to kill you. They're trying to recruit you. They're trying to get you on their side. They want you to be angry. They want you to be pissed or jealous or, full of rage and stuff like that. So what we do is we cast a ridiculous spell on them straight from Harry Potter, and we just laugh at them, or we laugh internally at the very least, right? Anyways, so they show you these ninjas jumping through the air, just like they do in the Matrix when Neo, jumps into the air in slow motion. He's having that gun battle. So they do that whole old school ninja jumping, fighting in the air. The reason they can jump so high is because this happens after the depressurization event. When the world depressurizes, when the atmosphere depressurizes, then there's an increased buoyancy force in our world, which allows things to weigh less, basically. And you can do super jumps. You can leap tall buildings in a single bound, right? So that's where all that ninja stuff is. So now the Bigfoot, the mutant, weird-looking Bigfoot thing attacks Jack Burton. They knock it down to the ground. Jack tries to throw a knife at Lo Pan, but he misses. So Lo Pan, he's starting to become more human, right? He's starting to get his flesh. So this is that bad energy trying to possess people, okay? Basically, Lo Pan could be any of you. just so you know. It's not just like there's a special Antichrist, one person out there who's going to be born and that'll be the evilest person ever. No, there's millions of evilest people ever right now walking around, okay? Anyway, so Lopan's starting to become flesh. He picks up Jack Burton's knife and he's like, right on, goodbye, Mr. Burton. Goes to throw the knife. Jack catches it, throws it right back at him. Boom, right in his head. Fopow. Right in his pineal gland. Actually, if you notice, right? Destroys it, kills him, puts the knife right through the head, and Lopan is gone. And just as cool as he came in, he's like, it's all in the reflexes, right? It's all in how you respond. It's all in your reflex. It's all in your how you respond to the world and to what happens to you. That's really what it's about, right? That's the important thing, right? How are you going to respond? What's your reflex action going to be? Now, you also notice, too, that, you know, some of you older people may have noticed that when you were younger, let's say that you, like, dropped something or something fell, and it's like you have superpowers. Pow! Like, it's like time slowed down, and you could just catch stuff. That's because you're not thinking about it, right? As people get a little older, they start to, you know, think a bit more, instead of just going off of their intuition, right? So reflexes are a type of superpower. Time slows down when you act upon reflexes. I remember back in my heyday when I was like ultimate basketball player, right? I felt like time slowed down when I was on the court. I could see, people were moving in slow motion, and I had all the time in the world to, like, you know, to dribble around them or however I wanted to plan things out. Some of you people that are like sports people, you know, you probably know what I'm talking about, right? That's going off of your intuition. That's going off of reflex. That's just going off of, you know what I mean, trusting in yourself, basically. When you stop trusting in yourself is when things fall off of the table and you go to catch it and you miss, right? Because you're getting older and you stop focusing on believing in your intuition and believing in yourself and stuff. Plus, your physical body is actually degrading too, as we've talked about. So go with your reflexes, go with your intuition. Now, the Cabbage Patch Ninja, I forgot what he was. His name's Thunder, I think, one of the 3 storms. He starts to expand, right? He turns into this big old huge, I don't know, Cabbage Patch Kid looking blow up dude. I don't know why this is a superpower at all. This is terrible. This is I would rather have the back scratcher weapons from the back scratcher ninja than I would the blow myself up power. You know, it doesn't seem like a super good power. Anyways, he starts expanding, right? And this, I believe that this is just symbolically, right? Let's get back to the truth of the matter. Symbolically, this is showing you the world depressurizing, right? And whenever you live in a lower pressure, then your body expands, actually. So, like, you know, you could see examples of that out in, you know, when they say that astronauts go out into space or whatever, lower pressure will actually allow your spine to, like extend and get bigger, and, you know, your body gets a bit bigger and stuff, leading to gigantism, stuff like that, right? All right, anyways, so we have Raiden, or whatever his name is. Raiden comes in, the electrical storm god. He comes in, and he's the last one that they got to kill, right? So the back scratcher ninja, I didn't show you that because it was kind of a lame kill scene. But basically, he jumped up doing his ninja jump, and they just threw a sword at him. That was it. He was like, "Oh snap! You just threw a sword at me, and I died." And then they killed the one Cabbage Patch Kid dude. He just blew up with his own power. He went on self-destruct mode. Lopan got nailed in the pineal gland with a knife. All they got to do is kill this dude, right? So this guy comes out shooting his electricity. They jump up into the ceiling, into this hole. And then there's this Buddha statue. You see this dude right here? See this? There's a Buddha statue and another Buddha statue or whatever these are. And they basically just drop it onto him. Kind of a weak, like, kind of anticlimactic, I would say. But anyways, they take off. They killed all the bad guys. They get back into the Pork Chop Express. They're leaving right as the cops are showing up, right, to clean up the mess because, you know, maybe they want to write some tickets and make some money or something. I don't know. So they take off. They say goodbye to Egg Shin. And he's like, "Are you going to go back to China, you know, visit the motherland?" He says, "Well, China is in the heart, Jack. Wherever I go, she is with me." So China is in the heart, okay? Not just the country, China, but the word China is Chi Na, which means our life force, Okay? Your life force is in your heart, or your heart chakra. Your life force is always with you. Whatever you resonate with is always going to be with you. So Jack wants to say his goodbyes to everybody. Gracie Law is, you know, giving him the eyes. She totally gives him the eyes. And she's like, hey, you know, want me to come with you and I'll shack up in the back of your truck with you? And he's like, he starts walking. And her friend's like, God, aren't you even going to kiss her goodbye? He's like, I'll think about it, you know. He's like, aren't you even going to kiss her goodbye? And he's like, oh. And he looks over at her, and she's giving him serious eyes. And he's like, nah. Super smooth, super cool. He takes off. He's like, I'm good. You know, he takes off. He's a loner. And you can see the fog's still right behind him. And he says, we really shook the pillars of heaven, didn't we, Wang? Well, they did, right? The pillars of heaven are those beams that surround. I mean, Mount Meru is one of the pillars. It's the main pillar. But there are subsequent pillars around Mount Meru. There are other plasma volcanoes, other earth entrances, and they shoot their beams of light up too. And they all seem to be pillars or columns that hold up the sky. And when those pillars are shaken, that's whenever the apocalypse comes in. So he puts on his They Live John Carpenter sunglasses from Rowdy Roddy Piper. Walks off into the fog like a cool glass of water, and he gets back into the Pork Chop Express, and he says, you just listen to the old Pork Chop Express here now and take his advice on a dark and stormy night when the lightning's crashing and the thunder's rolling and the rain's coming down in sheets thick as lead. Just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes and the poison arrows fall from the sky and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton just looks that big old storm right square in the eye, and he says, give me your best shot, pal. I can take it. And then, whoosh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Toka and Rezar dude pops up on the back of the truck. So, allegedly, there's supposed to be a sequel. They say that they're working on a part 2. I don't know. They said that about Beetlejuice forever, and now they're actually having a Beetlejuice part 2. So I don't know. They might do a part 2 to this movie. I would love to see it. I'm also kind of worried to see it because this one's so good and so classic, right? And that's our story. That's our presentation for today. So thanks for joining me on Truth in Movies tonight. Remember to go leave your movie recommendations in my community tab. And check out some of the other posts. I just posted a whole bunch of brand new shorts on my shorts. The community post, my website, JayDreamerZ.com, and of course, my book, all about the plasma apocalypse, called Ancient Oblivion, the Plasma Apocalypse. Thanks for joining me tonight on our showing of Truth in Movies, Big Trouble in Little China. Until next time, I'm JayDreamer saying good vibes and goodbye.
Decode.